Hey there, Benjamin from Loves Data here, welcome back. Today we're talking all about KPIs, Key Performance Indicators. Setting KPIs and reporting on your progress keeps you focused on the objectives for your business or organisation. We're going to cover how to choose KPIs, setting targets, and how to create a KPI dashboard you can use to report on the performance of your website and marketing. Before we get started, I want to give a shout out to Whatagraph for sponsoring this video. Whatagraph lets you quickly and easily create visual reports that you can use for yourself or your clients. And as we'll see in a moment, it lets you enter goals for your KPIs and track your progress, which is pretty neat. Okay, what are KPIs anyway? Well, overall, a KPI is something you can measure that lets you understand how well you're progressing towards a defined target or goal. For example, if your business made $600,000 last year, you might aim to increase revenue by 15% this year. This means your KPI for revenue would be $690,000. And you might even break this down further, so you set a quarterly or monthly revenue target. And KPIs don't just need to be about revenue. For example, you might set a KPI for the number of leads you generate, how many subscribers you add to your email list, or even customer satisfaction. Let's talk about choosing KPIs. Try to focus on metrics that help you achieve your overarching business objective. And aim to choose a handful of KPIs. 3 or 4 KPIs is a good starting point. For example, if you're in the business of selling t-shirts, then the metrics you choose should be tied to selling your t-shirts. Yes, things like email signups and people engaging with your content are important, but there are other metrics like average order value and lifetime value that are a better choice. And other types of businesses should focus on different KPIs. For example, if you're a consultant trying to generate leads, then you might focus on the number of leads you receive and your cost per lead. Examples of KPIs you could use include total revenue, the number of transactions, average order value, the number of conversions or leads you receive, profit, conversion rate, lifetime value, and cost per conversion. When it comes to setting targets for your KPIs, it's all about balance. You want to set a goal that will stretch you. It should be a challenge, but it should also be achievable. You need to be able to apply sales, marketing, and optimization tactics to reach your goal. Once you've selected a metric to use for your KPI, I recommend taking a look at your historical performance, including monthly, quarterly, and yearly. If in doubt, then you could set a target that is 10 to 15% higher than the average you've previously achieved. Remember, the KPIs you choose should help you reach your overarching business goals. Now I'm going to show you how to create a KPI dashboard. We're going to create our dashboard using Whatagraph with data from Google Analytics. So let's head to Whatagraph. I already have an account, but if you don't have an account yet, then you can start a free trial. And you can get your first 3 months with a 50% discount using the special code I've included in the description below this video. Okay, I'm going to click Login. Then I'm going to select the updated version of Whatagraph. And since I'm already logged in, I can see the home screen. This lets me access my existing reports, create new reports, use templates, manage data sources, and more. Let's select the option to create a new report. If you want to get started quickly, then the templates and Smart Builder are great options. The Smart Builder lets you select the data sources you want to use for your report and the areas you want the report to cover. It will then automatically build a report for you. But today we're going to build our KPI dashboard from scratch. So let's go ahead and choose blank from the drop-down. We can now choose if we want to connect an existing data source to our new report. But let's select the option to skip this and go to the widgets. On the right, we can see the sample Google Analytics data source is being used for the report. But you can select this to change it. And we can see there are different types of sources we can add to our report. I've already connected 2 Universal Analytics reporting views, so if I select Google Analytics, I can then select them to use them for the report. And if you're getting started, then you can select the type of source you would like to add to connect it to WaterGraph. For example, let's say we want to build the report using a GA4 property. Then we select Google Analytics 4. And then we click Connect. Follow the steps to connect our account. Then we can choose the GA4 properties we'd like to use. And click Save Changes. We can then head back to our report. And use the GA4 property we just connected. For the dashboard we are creating today, I'm going to stick with the sample data, and let's choose the GA4 sample data. If you'd prefer to use data from Universal Analytics, then just select Google Analytics as the source, instead of Google Analytics 4. I've also included a link to a Universal Analytics version of the dashboard we're about to build, and a link to the GA4 version. So if you're in a hurry, you can grab the dashboards in the description below this video. Now it's time to add the first widget to our dashboard. We will use some of the pre-made widgets in a moment, but to start, let's select Pre-made and choose Build Your Own. I want you to click and drag the goal widget over to the canvas on the left. Everything snaps into place, which keeps things neat and tidy in your report. It's probably obvious, but you can drag widgets around and resize them as you need. This widget is the core of our KPI dashboard. We can see that it shows us the number of sessions and active users from the last 30 days, and for both of these metrics there is a goal. So we can see the number of sessions we received and the goal, or the number of sessions we're aiming to achieve. So this widget is perfect for defining key metrics you want to focus on for performance. Let's make some adjustments to the metrics included in the widget. Let's hide the time passed row. And let's select the sessions metric. And change sessions to total revenue. And click Update. Now that we've selected the metric we want to use for our first KPI, we can enter the goal or objective we've chosen. So if our objective is to reach $25,000 for the date range, then we can enter $25,000 as the goal value. And we can see our widget update with the new goal on the left. I also like keeping things simple in reports and dashboards, so let's rename the metric in our widget. Let's change the name to Revenue. Now let's click Close. And let's modify the active users metric in the widget. Let's change active users to conversions. Let's click Update. Now let's enter our objective for this KPI. Let's enter 6,000. Again, the widget updates on the left. Now we can click Close. And let's add a new goal to our widget. Let's select the metric. And change this to ARPU. And click Update. This gives us the average revenue of our users, and we can set the objective for our average revenue. I'm going to enter $2.50. Let's rename the metric to Average User Value. And we can click Close. And now let's add another goal to our widget. Let's change the metric. And let's choose Views. And click Update. Now this will give us the total number of views on our website, but I want to use this goal to show us the number of views of the product pages on our website. So I'm going to add a filter to the metric. So let's click Add a Filter. We can now define a filter for the metric. This is a great way to quickly adjust elements in your reports and dashboards. Let's name the filter Product Pages. And let's click the first drop-down. Let's search for and select Page Location. Then for the second drop-down, we can choose the matching. For more advanced matching, you can see there are options to use regular expressions. We're going to keep things simple today, so let's select Contains. And let's enter Product. Our filter now says the page location needs to contain product. You can change this to any page or section of your website that relates to your KPI. We can enable the option to save the filter. This is handy because it means you can reuse the filter later. So let's go ahead and enable this. Then when you're happy, click Apply Filter. And we can now set the goal for our KPI. For this example, I'm going to enter 4,500 as the objective. And I'm going to change the name from Views to Views of Product Pages. Now let's click Close. And let's add another goal to the widget. Let's select the metric. Let's remove the filter. And let's change the metric to Transaction Rate. And click Update. Let's change the name to E-commerce Conversion Rate. And let's enter 1.5 as the objective. And click Close. For this dashboard, I'm going to add one final KPI. Let's add one more goal. And let's change the metric. We're going to change it to Conversion Rate. We click Update. Set the objective as 10. And click Close. We have the start of a dashboard that includes the critical metrics for our website, our KPIs, along with the objectives we've set. This makes it easy to see our progress. Let's rename the widget KPIs. Now that we have the KPIs on our dashboard, we're going to add some additional charts that help support those metrics. These will help to provide quick insights into the performance of our website, including revenue, conversions, and more. To add more widgets to our dashboard, let's click Close. And let's select the pre-made All Users widget. This lets us include a single value on our dashboard. Let's add it to the canvas. We can then resize it so that it's small and just presents the metric. And let's adjust it so that it shows us the percentage change for the metric. To do this, we select the calendar and enable the Compare option and click Apply. Now we can quickly see if things are improving or decreasing for the metric. Let's adjust the name of the metric. Let's change it to Users. We can also adjust the icon that is used for the metric. We just need to find the metric on the right. Click the three vertical dots and choose Change Icon. We can then choose an icon to go with the metric. When you're happy, click Insert. Let's duplicate our widget 3 times. Reposition them on the canvas. And let's change the second widget so that it shows us the engagement rate. Let's rename the metric to Engagement. And let's change the icon. And I don't want to include the decimals, so I want a whole number. To do this, we select the Settings tab and change the option for Number Display After Comma. Now let's select the next widget and change the metric to ARPU, Average Revenue Per User. Let's change the name to Average Revenue. And let's change the icon for the widget. Now let's select the other widget. And let's change the metric to First-Time Purchasers. And rename the metric to New Buyers. And let's change the icon. And let's click Close. Now we're going to add a funnel visualization to our dashboard. It's easy to create this in Whatograph, and you can apply filters to the different steps to customize what's included in the funnel. Let's take a look. Okay, so let's make sure Build Your Own is selected for the type of widget we want to create. And let's search for Funnel. We can now drag the funnel widget to the canvas. And let's resize it. We're going to include important steps people need to take to complete a purchase, but you can customize your funnel for any events that have been collected into Google Analytics. Let's select the first metric in the funnel and change this to Total Users. Let's rename the metric to Users. And click Close. Now let's select the second metric in the funnel. Let's change the metric to Total Users. And we're going to apply a filter so that we're only including people who viewed a product page. Let's click Add a Filter. We're going to use the filter we saved earlier, so let's click View Saved Filters. And choose the filter we created. Now let's click Apply. And we need to rename the metric, so let's change it to Viewed Product. And let's click Close. And let's add another row to the funnel. Let's select this metric, and let's remove the filter. And create a new one. Let's name the filter Viewed Cart. And select Page Location, then Contains, and enter Cart. This filter will include people who viewed pages that contain cart. Again, you can customize this to your website. Let's enable Save Filter for Later, and click Apply Filter. Let's rename the metric to Viewed Cart. And let's click Close. Now let's add one more row to the funnel. Let's select the metric. And let's remove the filter. Now let's change the metric to Transactions. And click Update. And let's click Close. We now have a great visualization of people traveling through the steps and purchasing. Let's edit the name of the widget. Let's select Edit Title and enter Users to Transactions. Now we're going to add two bar charts to identify any trends during the date range we have selected. Let's click Close. And let's select Build Your Own. And let's add the vertical bar widget to the canvas. Let's resize it. And let's remove the second metric so that it only includes a single metric in the widget. Now let's select the metric and change sessions to total revenue. And click Close. Let's select Edit Title and name the widget Revenue. Now let's select the Settings tab and let's enable the option to hide the legend. Now let's duplicate the widget. Resize the copy and let's change the metric. Let's change total revenue to conversions and click Update. Now let's click Close and change the title of the widget to Conversions. Now our two charts look very similar because they're presented in the same color. So let's change this so that it's clear they're different metrics. To do this, we need to select the Settings tab and then scroll down to Colors and click Edit. Under Primary Chart Colors, let's click the first color and let's change it. Now let's click Save Changes and let's click Close and Close again. We can now clearly see that the two widgets are presenting different metrics. Okay, let's add one more widget to our dashboard. We're going to add a table that shows the top pages people view on the website. Let's drag the table widget to the canvas. Let's resize it. Let's change the dimensions. Let's search for page title and screen name and enable it. And let's search for channel and enable session default channel grouping. Now let's search for gender and disable it, and age and disable it. And let's click Update. Let's rename the first dimension to page title. And the second dimension to channel. Now let's adjust the metrics in the table. Let's search for conversion rate and enable it, and transaction rate and enable it. Now let's search for sessions and disable it and click Update. And let's change the title of the widget to Top Pages. We can now see how people are finding our top pages, how many times they're viewed, and if they're viewed in people's path to conversion. From here, you can further customize the dashboard, including the branding that's displayed at the top and the bottom of the report, and the colors used for the charts. Let's click Close, and let's select the Report Settings tab. You can customize the branding used for your report. And you can upload your own logo. And you can adjust the colors used for the charts and other elements in the report. Finally, let's name our dashboard. Let's select the name and change it to KPI Dashboard. We've now created our KPI dashboard using data from Google Analytics. So that's how you can create a KPI dashboard using WaterGraph, plus tips for choosing and setting KPIs. I've included links to get the KPI dashboard in the description below this video. This includes the GA4 version we created and a version for Universal Analytics. Remember to choose KPIs that are measurable and that are tied to your overarching business objectives. Aim to set an achievable goal for each of your KPIs. It should be a challenge, but also achievable. What KPIs are you using? I'd love to know. Let me know in the comments below. And if you found this video helpful, please subscribe so I know to make more videos like this one. Thanks again to Whatograph for sponsoring this video. I've included their special offer and link in the description below this video, so please take a moment to check out Whatograph. I'll see you in the next video.